Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth and it's nice to have you here today. Today I'm going to make another I Spy quilt. I made this one about 13 years ago for my daughter, and today I'm going to get pretty far along making two for my twin grandsons that are now 4 years old. I have a nice big stash of lots of fun kids fabric that I call I Spy fabric. And I'm going to cut some squares and I'm going to start making those quilts. Let's get started. Here is the I Spy fabric that I've been collecting for quite a long time, more than those 13 years since I made that first one. And I have them stored in these IKEA bags. I have 2 bags of I Spy fabric. I have some animals and holidays, I have fall fabrics, and then I have a bag here with just a lot of little pieces that I just wanted to keep just in case I need a little tiny piece of something in the future. Today my blocks that I'll be cutting are 5 inches, so I needed fabric that was 5 inches at least, and a couple of those fabrics though I did piece. Here's some Christmas fabric that needs to go in the Christmas box that was kind of filed incorrectly, and here is the big mess. This is what it looked like before I started my project. I decided this time I really need to get my I Spy fabrics organized. So I sat down and put them in those piles that you saw just a minute ago. Tried to get them organized just a little bit, and here are a whole bunch of 5-inch squares. For the quilt tops that I'll be making today, I figured I need 90 of these squares, and they're all different. And since I'm making 2 quilts for the 2 boys, I will be cutting 2 squares from each fabric. This is a hand-me-down fabric, and you can see that staining or that bleached area. I think the sun got to it. It is a really nice fabric, but I'm trying to avoid that bleached area, and hopefully it will be in the seam of this 5-inch block. I may have to cut another one though if that bleached area goes too far, but this is a fun fabric that's going to be added, and here's one of those strips that is not 5 inches, so I'm going to cut 2 strips just a little bit bigger than 5. I'll piece them together and press and cut a 5-inch square out of 2 strips here that I'll piece together. I am pressing the seams open on these little pieces of fabric, these squares, so there will be less bulk in that 5-inch square, and then I will trim these to, like I said, 5 inches, and I don't think with that busy fabric you'll really notice that there is a seam. These I Spy quilts, or just one patch square quilts, are easy to put together, but the only time consuming thing for me, I thought, with this quilt was getting all of the squares cut. So I set aside the fabric in the evenings. That's what I did for a couple of evenings, cutting out a pair of 90 squares. Did take a little bit of time, and searching through the fabric, trying to find the fabrics that I thought the boys would enjoy, took a little bit of time. but this is really going to be a fun quilt. And quilts do not have to be complicated. This is a very simple quilt to put together. If you cut your squares 5 inches and you're careful with that 5-inch square, and then you're careful to use a 1/4 inch seam with all of your seams, it will come together really nicely. This quilt, I like the alternate square, and the one I made 13 years ago, I just used muslin fabric, and it takes 1 yard and 5/8 of the background, or this alternate square, and I had these cotton sheets that I thought would be perfect for these quilts for the boys. So here's a really fun fabric just from a cotton sheet that I got at the thrift store, and I'm going to have more than enough of this fabric to use for my alternate square, but also for the border. I cut strips that were 5 inches in width, and then I took those strips and I started cutting my 5-inch squares. I then sat down at my sewing machine and I started piecing 2 squares together, 1 print and 1 of that background fabric. And I'll be making, like I said, 2 quilts. I'll start with this one with those triangular shaped designs on that alternate fabric, and then I set aside the other square, the printed squares. So the printed squares were in sets of 2, so as I went along I just put that extra one off to the side for my second quilt. There are a lot of fun fabrics in here for the boys. So this is a really fun thing to do, is to have that little bag of I Spy fabrics in your stash, so that when you want some really easy quilt to make, you can sit down and sew squares together and make a fun kids quilt. Chain piecing all of my fabrics together in 2s. I'm going to cut them apart, and then I'll start joining them together in groups of 4, and each row ended up being a group of 6 sets of fabric. Here is my first quilt top on the floor, all laid out. The rows are sewn together, and all I need to do now is sew those rows together one at a time, matching the seams. And I did not use pins at the seam. I was able to just nestle them together at each seam. I just kind of slowed down and pushed the seams opposite directions, trying to push the fabric towards the darker fabric each time, and that saved a little bit of time, and it went together really easily. Here's the fabric for that second quilt, using another sheet with the same colorway, that green and white. My second quilt, I'm putting the rows together, and before you know it, I had 2 quilt tops ready for some borders. Plenty of fabric with those cotton sheets to add some 4-inch borders all the way around these quilt tops. So I cut my 4-inch strips from the sheet, and what I'll do, rather than measuring the sides of the quilt, my strip is longer than I need, and I just lay it face down onto my quilt and pin all the way down. That way it'll be just the right size. After getting those 4-inch borders on using that sheet fabric, these quilts are almost done. I may add one more border, a scrappy border around. I'm still pondering that, but these quilts are so fun, not complicated, really simple to put together, and we're almost done here with these, and then I'll send them off to my 2 little 4-year-old grandsons. I can't wait. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.